Mr. Rickie Clark. Mr. Rickie Clark is an educational consultant, public speaker, author, and executive director of the Fort Worth Independent School District's Mind Brothers Keeper. He has spent the last 30 years working with the youth of today through self-development, cultural education, and understanding and meeting them exactly where they are in order to guide them on to higher education. Before I bring him up, one of the key things in that introduction is he meets you where you are. So when you decide to reach out to our guests today, they're going to be receiving you where you are. You don't have to polish yourself. Be willing to make that connection. Thank you for that. I welcome Mr. Rickie Clark. We'll be back. We'll just leave this here for advertising purposes.
I'm going to stay up here on the stage. That's all right with you.
All right.
Let me begin as I always do, and that's by giving honor to God. I know that some call him Jah, some call him Amin Ra, some call him Jehovah Jireh, and some call him Allah. But I just simply say God, who is the most gracious and the most merciful. Also at this time, I'd like to welcome the spirits of our godly ancestors, who I invite to be with us and to guide us from that plane of awareness so we can be about the things we're about and say the things we're about to say. I want to let you know, young man, that it is indeed a privilege and an honor for me to greet you today. I understand that you are the light of the world, and you will illuminate the minds of all others in the pattern of your greatness through your intellect. For you bow to none, for you stand head and shoulders above all the others. It is indeed a privilege and an honor to greet you. Give yourselves a black hand, please. And if I could, I want to introduce myself poetically and say I am the black man. Some know me as Hotep, Ramses, Martin, or Malcolm. Others know me as a man on a corner or in jail. I am both. Detroit Red and Malcolm. But from this day forward, I have pledged my life to liberate my people. I put God first in my life, and women feel safe when they see me. I have been a loving, responsible, encouraging husband. I talk to, listen to, hug, and educate my children. I am supportive of role models, scouts, and rites of passage. Why? Because I'm the black man, the original man, the one and only man, the one that others are afraid of, because they know that whenever we give an opportunity, we succeed. And I want to let y'all know, I promise not to be long, but I do promise to be strong. I was asked to speak about a word called character, right? To not only tell you what character is, but how do you build it and how you stand on it. So I'm going to start off by they gave a definition. Character is really your essence of who you are and what you're about, right? But how do you get to that point? I mean, I'm standing here talking to you now, but if I can briefly tell you a little bit about my history, about where I come from, what that is. I haven't always been able to do this. I've raised 5 boys as a single parent. I'm not bragging, that's a testimony. I met my son before I met my daddy. Let me repeat that. I said I met my son before I met my daddy, right? And growing up on the southeast side of Chicago, I'm the one in my family who graduated from high school. And yes, I do have a college degree. I majored in math also. I got my degree in mathematics. And I'll tell you briefly, when I got to college, they asked me 3 things. What's my major, what's my minor, and what's my denomination? I told that lady, I don't play dominoes. Because I didn't know what a major was, I didn't know what a minor was, and I barely didn't know what a denomination was. But then when I got to talking to her, she was like, well, you know, she gave me the definition of it. And I always ask at the schools to the kids, they'll laugh. And I ask them, do you know what that is? And they didn't know what it is either. Right? But when she explained it to me, I told her, well, I majored in math. You know, she said, well, you might not want to major in math. Ain't there many people, black people to do that? I was like, well, I did. I ended up getting my degree in math. And once I got my degree in math, you have to understand that I'm in a school, and I want to let y'all know I had remedial math. If you don't know what remedial math is or remedial English, that means you took a class to prepare you for the class. And I'm so glad that I took the class to prepare me for the class, because now after taking the class and preparing you for the class, now I was able to pass the class. So numerical analysis, abstract algebra, I do math numbers in my head right now, not knowing that my ancestors taught the world. And so when I think about things like that, even in the audience like that, I would even ask you a question. How many digits in the world? Can somebody help me with that?
Yes.
Yes.
I say 1.2 each.
I said how many digits in the world? Not how many numbers.
12.
Let me ask the question again. How many digits in the world? That's not correct, young man. Y'all ready? Oh, so y'all may not know either, huh? There are 9 digits in the world. How many digits in the world now? 9. So you have digits and you have numbers. So there's only 9 digits in the world. The reason I chose math, because everything is based on a mathematical concept. Right? So once I learned 9 digits, and then it said 12 inches equals a what? A foot. Whose foot? Because mine don't equal 12 inches. 12 inches equals a foot. There are 9 digits. Can I get even deeper than that? Somebody say, go on, get deep. Where do numbers come from? Then it was quiet. Where did those 9 digits come from?
Egyptian.
Right. Well, actually, that's what the Egyptians called them Egyptians. But it actually came from Kemet. Greeks call it Egypt. But the real name of it is Kemet. And Kemet literally means land of the blacks. Right? So as I began to talk about character and build this up, how did I do this? Remember, I met my son before I met my daddy. So I'm in college with child support and bills to pay. Y'all done heard me, right? I remember meeting y'all, like, you're the first person I've ever met that have a baby already, a freshman in high school. Right? I had a baby by a girl I didn't even like. I love her now. As a matter of fact, she lives in my house. But as a boy, you think as a boy, but as a man, you put down childish things. So when you talk about character, where did I learn this from? I began to study and learn about ourselves, learn about my people. Right? Where you come from, what's that like, and had an opportunity to meet my own daddy. When I met my daddy, I asked my daddy a question. I asked him, when did he meet his daddy? But he didn't meet his daddy until he was 21. I said, well, when you met your daddy, what did you want to do? He said, I wanted to kill him. I said, well, what did y'all do? He said, we got drunk together. Like, drunk together? I was like, wow, that's strange. My Aunt Daddy ended up passing. I seen him 27 times before he died. My daddy was a functioning alcoholic. I do not drink. I do not smoke because of what I learned from my daddy, right? Last thing I heard. So I told y'all we're going to talk about character. But as I began to see my daddy and see the things that I did, I was like, the one thing I wanted to do is not be like my daddy. But I ain't mad at my daddy either, right? Because my daddy couldn't be a daddy because his daddy didn't teach him, right? And I couldn't do what I do because my daddy didn't teach me. But then when I had my son, I was like, whoa, I got to do more for him than what my daddy did for me. Well, how do you give something you ain't never had? You can't lead what you don't know. You can't teach what you don't know. Right? So I began to read. I began to study. And oftentimes when I would read these books, I would read the reference books. Like, where did they get that information from? Well, I'm going to read the reference book from the reference book that read the reference book. And everything kept pointing black to Africa. I did say that. We're going to put it again. Everything kept pointing black to Africa. So I began to study our history. And if you notice, the word history sounds like his story. But my story sounds like mystery, right? You'll get that when you get home. His story sounds like history. My story sounds like mystery. So I began to read books. There's a man by the name of Dr. Jawanza Kajufu. As a matter of fact, there was a poem that I quoted when I first started. And he wrote this book called Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3. I encourage you to get that. And at one time, I was living with a young lady. I'm living in a house, living in an apartment, doing the things that y'all talked about. So you look at me now. And then I had a chance to meet this man. His name was Dr. Naeem Akbar. He wrote a book called Vision for the Black Man. I'm going to leave you in a few seconds. So when I read the book called Vision for the Black Man, as a matter of fact, I met the guy that wrote the book. I'm sitting at the feet of him. I'm down there, I'm talking to him. I meet Dr. Jawanza Kajufu. I read the book. And at the time, I had a girlfriend. We was playing house. Let me repeat. I said I had a girlfriend. We was playing house. So when I read the book, Vision for the Black Man, in the book it says, boys play house, but men get married. Let me repeat that. It said, boys play house, but men get married. Man, I read that book. I'm reading on the airplane. By the time I got off the airplane, I got to the house, I told my young man, look, we going to have to separate. She was like, what? We just moved. I was like, no, boys play house, men get married. I got to call my sons. I got to call and raise my kids. And that's what happened. I told her that. Guess what? She took all the stuff out the house. Everything out the house. All the furniture. I didn't have a problem with it. The next day I bought brand new furniture. She came back to get something else and she saw that I bought brand new furniture. She took the pictures off the walls. Me and her are best friends right now today. At that point, I forgot to tell y'all, I had another son while I was in college. So at that point, I was like, look, send me my sons. But if you read my book, it said I raised 5 boys as a single parent. But only 2 of my biological sons. A real man to take care of his kids and somebody else. Boys don't do that, but men do. So I had to be this man for not only mine, but for other young men too. Took me on a journey. And I'm so glad I've been on that journey. Took me on a journey to the point that I had to even write my own book. Since that time, I've written 2 books. One of them called What My Daddy Should Have Told Me, Life Lessons for the African American Male. And my newest book is called From Kindergarten to 12th Grade, Can Equal 13 Years a Slave. And remember, I got a degree in mathematics, right? I didn't get a degree in writing, right? That wasn't my specialty. But I got a degree in mathematics. But I've written 2 books, working on my 3rd book, What My Mama Did Tell Me, A Message from Winnie. Right? So why do I tell you that? Because sometimes your character has to be built on what you see. You can't lead where you don't go. You can't teach what you don't know. So I had to see men, identify them, and seek them out, and be perfectly honest. The men that mentored me, some of them I've never even met. I just read about it. So reading should become like eating, done daily and consuming the best. As I sit here, I see some of these men, young men on their cell phones. I ain't mad because you're on cell phone. You might, that's where you are right now. But I bet you hear me. And the fact that you hear what I'm saying, even if you don't hear it, you're going to wish you did hear it. It's going to come back and say, what did that guy say about that? Right? So what changed? Everything changed. I started reading my history and found out it was my ancestors who taught the world. So I opened up by asking the questions about the number. Do you know there are 9 digits? We gave the world the digits. The world didn't give it to us. We taught them. They didn't teach us. When you talk about 12 inches equals a foot, that's the king's foot. But what did the king look like? A black man. So we in here talking about character when we taught the world about character. When we come to ourselves and know who we are and know what it is we're supposed to do, everything else changes. I walk in certain rooms all the time, they're like, man, who are you? What do you mean, who am I? You just walk different. You just talk different. Your mannerism is different. Are you a preacher? Are you a teacher? Are you the principal? No, I'm just a young man who knows who I am and love myself. I love myself so much that it can see it, right? I'm not bragging. It's a testimony. And let me leave you with this. There's a poem that I encourage you to read. It's called If by Rickie Clark. And you would have to ask, what if a little black boy from the south side of Chicago read the book, read the poem or memorizing the poem called If? But I did. And so for your character that you want to build and how do you maintain it, you have to have certain principles and certain values to live by. And let me share with you one of them. And this is the poem, again, by Rickie Clark, and I quote. It says, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, will make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't live in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating. And yet, don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master. If you can think and not make thoughts your aim. If you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those 2 impostors just the same. If you can bear the truth you spoke and twist it by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stupid building with worn out tools. If you can take one heap of all your winning and put it on one turn of pitch and toss and lose and start again at your beginnings and never read a word about their loss. If you can voice your heart, nerve, and sinew to serve your turn, long by they're gone, and so hold on when there's nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can walk with crowds, don't lose your virtue, or walk with kings, don't lose the common touch, and neither foes nor friends can hurt you. If all men count with you, but none too much, if you can feel those unforgiving moments with 60 seconds worth of distance run, then yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son.